Welcome to Act 2 You're On. Join us weekly at our studio roundtable as Rhonda, Kate, and Linda invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy. Launch your next great act with authenticity and purpose. Summon your courage, superstar, and step into the limelight. So grab a coffee
or a martini
and let's set the stage for a grand entrance. It's Act 2.
You're on.
Greetings, friends, and Happy New Year! Happy 2022, and welcome to Act 2 You're On, A2YO. My name is Kate Levy, and I'm joined by these magnificent hosts, my dear friends.
I'm Linda Ty. Yes, you are. And I am Rhonda Garvin-Conaway. And today we are so excited because it is all about new things in the new year. And our next guest is going to help us dive into what it means to go from like a resolution to really some refinement in our world and in our, not only our business lives and our endeavors, but in our personal work.
Yeah. And it's a particularly special day because our guest is Leo Ryan, who is a true friend of our show. He's a friend to all of us. We met through the arts. That was our connection. And I knew Leo, I think first, and I knew him by reputation. He was a wonderful athlete, wonderful coach. And then I've gotten to know him over the years. I've known him through the arts, but also now in this incredible work that he's doing, studying shamanism and energy work and sustainability. He's just really the most remarkable gentleman. So we're thrilled that he's here. And let me tell you a little bit about his bio. Leo Ryan is a former professional athlete and a nationally ranked triathlete for 30 years. 30 years.
Wow.
Crazy. A successful businessman with a noteworthy career in sustainability. And now in his work, Energy Matters to You. Energy Matters, number 2, letter U. All an amalgamation of his life experiences leading to this part of his life, his study of shamanism and his work with the Jaguar Path. It is indeed a great privilege and such a joy to introduce a real friend of Act 2 You're On, Leo Ryan.
No, thank you so much, Kate, Rhonda, and Linda. Yes, you are dear friends of mine. And, the work that you do day in and day out for service in your community and the arts is just outstanding. So I am very happy and honored to be part of the Act 2 You're On podcast. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're thrilled that you're here. And we were reflecting randomly the other day about the work that we have done and also that we've experienced, preparing us kind of for reinvention and what comes next. And it really feels that the work you are doing now is so important to not only the women that you're serving, but the men who are serving, because I don't know that men always get the same experience or the preparation for reinvention, and they deserve it. And the work that you're doing, I can't wait for our listeners to hear more about it.
I think there's some truth to that, the way you've divided that up. We talk specifically about the work. So the work is connected with rituals connected to a term, shamanism. And we're going to talk about words as we work through this, because oftentimes words are loaded and they need an explanation, and people set up their guard relative to words. And shamanism is a word like that. It triggers some people. And the other part of the practice is yoga. And you spotlighted some of the physical activities that have been part of my life. Sports has been an important part of my life. And as I transition to a later stage in life, approaching 60, the way I interact with sports is different. And so yoga has provided a different way for me to participate in the physical activities of life. So yeah, and Kate, the point that you made about men having kind of I would say a more difficult or less inclined approach to the intuitive or to the non-traditional or the activities that are non-competitive. Those tend to be things that men don't fall into, and they can be so healing. And one of the things that we can see as a society is there's so many spots where healing is needed. Right? In all kinds of discourses, opportunities for healing. But that healing really starts with ourselves, right? So, and the shamanistic work really is about coming to understand who we are, you being your own shaman, taking these rituals, rites of passage, connections with her, owning them yourself as part of your own personal healing.
Yeah. We also talked briefly, you and I recently, we often have philosophical conversations, but you were saying that your mission is not to become someone's guru, that you're trying to help people find their own inner shaman and they can learn to heal themselves and maintain their wellness. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, right on. I mean, I don't have anything special. I mean, I'm working this out myself. And I think I've really been blessed to have been exposed to ways of thinking and people and traditions and rituals that have helped me. And the invitation from all those communities where there has been healing has been invite others. And there's a million different paths up that mountain, right? There's all different ways of accessing your own truth, your own sense of wholeness, your own expanding energies, all different ways to do that. And, the challenge in our life is to find the way that feels authentic to ourselves, that feels true to ourselves. And I guess in my role in bringing forward the shamanic teachings and the yoga traditions, my role is just to invite people into the space and find what works for them. And not all of it's going to resonate with them, not for all people, and completely understand that. And but just be open to that curiosity and that calling and do the work.
Mm.
Leo, can you tell us what Jaguar Path, what does that mean? And fill us in a little bit on what inspired you to put together the work that you're doing right now.
Yeah. So the Jaguar Path is very much the work of a gentleman by the name of Ray Christ. Ray has been kind of tasked with bringing forward some traditions that are very, very old, ancient, thousands of years old, that were developed in the Andes Mountains among the Q'ero people. And the Q'ero people are part of the Incan Empire. And somewhere around 500-600 years ago, when Pizarro and the Spanish arrived in the New World, these folks headed up to 15, 16, 17,000 feet, created a life for themselves, and lived that life for close to over 500 years. And then at a certain point, actually in the 1940s, they started coming down to Cusco and Lima, Peru, and they began to teach folks about these traditions that they had. And let me say something about these traditions. These traditions, you can find these indigenous connections or a way of understanding the world on every continent. And what's unique about them and kind of different from the way we generally see the world in the West, the first is that in these indigenous traditions, the feminine energy, the ability to create and nurture life is seen as primal. It's seen as the most important. And somewhere around 500 years ago, there was a shift where physical dominance and a masculine force kind of was seen as the primal energy. Most indigenous cultures hold that this ability to create and nurture life is the most important. The second differentiation in way of understanding our universe is how we as humans interact with other sentient, intelligent beings on this planet, that being plants and animals. So for thousands and thousands of years, 8,000, 10,000 years, humans collaborated with plants and animals, brothers and sisters, to understand the natural cycles. And somewhere around 500 years ago, we shifted this and took dominion over them. So it was no longer a collaboration. And then the third differentiation was in all indigenous cultures, there's a recognition that intuition, the ability to kind of perceive on a different level, defying logic, it's not a form of logic, is a valued way of perceiving the world. And somewhere around 500 years ago, the shift was to this reductionist, mechanistic understanding of a universe. So logical versus intuition. In fact, intuition was demonized, witchcraft. So these indigenous cultures had these three different ways of looking at the world, and you see this in all different parts of our current world. While these perspectives bubble up in all different forms of language, and so they bubbled up in the 1940s, and the Q'ero said, we got to stop just talking to each other at 16,000 feet in the Andes Mountains. Let's get to Metro West Boston. And so Ray Christ, about 15 years ago, on his own journey that was initiated by a very severe cancer diagnosis, Ray went around the world, ends up meeting these folks. My interaction with Ray started about 3 or 4 years ago when I went out to Kripalu. And Kripalu is a well-known yoga retreat center. It has different roots, but now they're known as a yoga education center. I went out there, I met Ray. and spent a week with them. And there was a resonance between the two of us. Ray said, Leo, I think you're called to do this. He asked me about 4 or 5 times. It wasn't something intuitive to me. And after that, we spent about a year together, which had included some time in Peru, meeting some of Ray's teachers. And that's deepened my knowledge of the Jaguar Path. The Jaguar Path, just to be clear, is Ray's interpretation of the Kiro teachings. And he's done a terrific job with that Jaguar Path at emphasizing other cultures. So there's a lean into the meridian system of the Chinese culture, that we have these rivers of energy that flow through us, and through Tai Chi and Qigong exercises, we can open those and energize and heal ourselves. And the chakras, the 7 or 9 points within the body that are essentially our energy funnels or vortexes that can be opened through cleansing. So Ray's done a terrific job of bringing those in. And as a student, these were not terminologies or systems that I was brought up with in my background. 8 years of Jesuit schooling, we didn't spend much time talking about chakras and energy bodies. But anyway, so that's the Jaguar Path. And Ray and I continue to have a conversation. He's doing terrific work based in Costa Rica now.
I am so fascinated by everything you're saying. This content gets me excited. But I want to, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about why it personally intrigued you. Why did that have an effect on you? You could have heard about this and said, no, not for me. Why did it speak to you, and why might it speak to all of us who are listening to you talk about it right now?
I don't know if I know the why, Rhonda. I do know that this curiosity is very, very old. And I often start the story when asked about, how this seems like kind of off the mark, Leo. You're a basketball coach and a business guy. But I was 16 or 17 years old and came across Carlos Castaneda's works. And Carlos Castaneda was an anthropologist, maybe a charlatan, based in Southern California, who records conversations and discussions with someone with a Native American living in the Southwest. Peyote is the driver for this, and what was important in that story is Castaneda's character, because many feel this is a fiction, right? It's a fictional account. His character's experiences an alternate state of reality. Okay. And I think most of us have occasions in our life where we tap into that. And I'll just say, when you just can't miss, when that jump shot is just going and going, that's like an alternate state of reality. How do you get there? God, I wish I knew. Right. I'd like to visit that more often in the older days. But the idea, we have these ideas, but you walk into a place, you walk into a sound and spirit rehearsal, and there's a lift in energy. There's something to that.
Yes.
And so early on, I'd sensed that. And that started a great curiosity, which had me in Paris for a year. It had me in Northern Scotland in a community called Finhorn. So Ronnie, there's been a lot of places along the way. But I became a father and provider, roles that I'm very proud of and happy to have served, and spent many years with those as my primary focus. And then as you move to a point where the kids are more and more self-sufficient, that curiosity never went away. And you come back, and someone like Ray Chris comes into your life, and then that opens it up. And I think this might be interesting for listeners, because it is one of those stories where a door closes and something else opens. And Kate in the bio mentioned a 30-year history of racing triathlon. And it requires a lot of time to do that. There's a lot of time during the week. It's a 12-month obsession. And in many ways, it's like going around in a circle. It's the same kind of things. And every year you're just getting a little bit older. And I got to what happened was I was managing a pretty significant knee injury. I had surgery on the knee. I couldn't race. And I bumped into that frustration of, you can't do this. You can't do this. And there was a complete frustration. And I was very unhappy. It was kind of a defining way of my life to spend this time doing that sport. I couldn't do it. And so, my life partner, Patty, says, get out of the house, go do something. And the invitation was go to Kripalu, and the Kripalu experience was an invitation. Door closed, door opens, right? So denied this, open to something else. Make the commitment, dive in, do the work. And the rehab was largely built around my experience with yoga. I wasn't a stranger to yoga, but I visited yoga 4 times a year as part of my triathlon maintenance. End of story. But then I go in with this knee issue because I can't run, can't do it anymore. So I'm in the yoga studio. That's all I can do. I can't do the poses. I'm just kind of working my way through the 90 minutes. But 2 years in the studio with some great teachers, coming, the knee's back. I can run on it. It's not the point anymore. The point is that I've developed this interest and passion around the yoga piece.
So in knowing Leo, I think it's interesting that energy is your life work, both in your business about sustainability, but also in this new chapter. So energy as an athlete, we've seen your energy as a performer. I mean, Leo is a total gamer, shows
Amazing.
up and lights up the stage. You can see in this interview, or you can hear it, there's just an energy. And it's been so fascinating now to experience your yoga, which is a completely different kind of energy. I have found doing yoga, which is the Jaguar Path yoga, so beautiful. And the things that you're saying, or the gentleness with which you're approaching certain moves, or I just feel like, I know that those aren't necessarily that some of it is scripted. It's language that is part of the experience, but it's just fascinating. And I'm going to say, I don't know that I've ever made a prediction yet on A2YO, but I feel like Ray is right, that you are a very special person. And I feel like the world needs you now, that this is going to take off. I think you're going to be a bridge for people, not only men, because I feel like as a woman, I go to your yoga classes and I love it. But it just strikes me that, you're this big, strong, athletic guy, and yet you're able to reach men and offer them this opportunity for growth and for a way to kind of move into the next, to what lies beyond. And I don't know. I feel like we're going to have you back.
I want to stop you because and thank you very much. I acknowledge what you say. I appreciate that, and embarrassed by it, and just reinforcing the fact that it's your own sense that pulls the value out of the Jaguar Path. It's your own curiosity. It's your own commitment. It's your own shaman. So you bring those tools in. You bring that curiosity, and that's what it revolves around. You have that curiosity. Can you do the work? And when you're called, do you respond? Right? That becomes the question. When you're called, when you're asked, do you respond?
Right. Because all of that is a reflection of who we are within, right? So we're responding to the Jaguar Path, or responding to the yoga, to the shamanism, whatever it may be, because it's a reflection of who we are. And so if we recognize that, we see it, and we know that that's an impulse, then we have the choice. And thank you for making the choice to lead in that direction.
You're welcome. Yeah. You're welcome. One of many.
Well, and role modeling also how, a terrible injury and something that just alters who you are and how you move through the world. It is another opportunity to say yes to something else, or to be curious and find something else to do. I also love to talk to you because we share a similar background with our Jesuit education about service and stewardship and collaboration. I'd love to hear you talk on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, that what a wonderful point to bring up, because I think that all of us realize our highest expression in service. And, I'm not sure that anyone would really push back on this, that experience of being in service to another very much resonates with almost everybody, that I feel fully alive, engaged when I'm in service. Now, sometimes it's hard to cross that bridge, where we have our own hurts, we have our own needs, we have our own inhibitions and limitations. Absolutely. And that has to be worked on, right? So we have to do that work so that we show up physically, emotionally. So we have those pieces. If the knee doesn't work, or the shoulder doesn't work, or the diet's off, or the sleep's not good, those are all factors. And, part of our responsibility as humans is to understand this skin suit that we occupy and how do we use it. Right. But then when we get that to a point where we can feel like we can be effectively be of service, there really is no higher feeling or calling than that. So that, the BC High, where I went to high school, a man for others is something. I just celebrated my 40th high school graduation. And that shows up in 50 emails, a man for others, right? So that's something that was, you can easily align with and feel good about, in community with that. So I see where the focus has been on being father provider. It's shifted for me personally, and then the question is what happens now, and the notion of how would I be of service, selfishly to make sure that I'm refining my gifts, using my gifts so that I can have that full experience and personally energized.
And how amazing is it that you injured your knee, so you couldn't run, and you have a wonderful life partner in your wife, right, who said, go do something, right? And so it's almost like the universe knew that you needed to meet Ray Chris. You went and that's how that connection was made out of like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And so instead of saying, I can't do this, I'm going to feel bad and just live in that, I'm going to go shift and do something else. And I think that's really important, particularly with the A2YO podcast. And what we talk about all the time is those kinds of transitions and seeing something like that as an opportunity.
That's a brilliant observation. Yeah, no, thankful for the community, especially my wife who provided that direction. But there's a larger community that has those resources and step into them. But Linda, you brought up something that's really, really important. And this is the idea that understanding ourselves and our universe as essentially energy and matter at a physical level. Physicists define it, they're basically the same things. E equals mc squared. They're the same thing. Energy and matter, they're the same thing. And when we're on an energy path that makes sense for us, things are easy. It may not feel that way, but there's an alignment. There's a synchronicity that takes place. So, is it an accident that I'm not smart enough to put the bike away and stop competing? I'm not smart enough to do that. But the universe says, yeah, you idiot. It's time to stop going in the circle and take this spiral a little deeper. Right. And so the guy did it right. Okay. So you put Ray Chris in the spot, vulnerable, I don't know who I am anymore. Right. So it's like I was a triathlete for 30 years. That's what I was doing for 10, 12 hours a week. And that's how I was defining myself in a lot of ways. Say, well, no, I'm going to shift this because you know what? We're taking away that piece. And to your point that I'm not going to say no to this because that's another thing to pay attention to is how many times do you get asked? Right, at a certain point, you don't get asked anymore. It's like that story about the woman who gets the police call and says, "There's a flood coming. You got to get out of the house." And then she ends up on the roof. The helicopter, the story, right? So the helicopter, and then she dies. She drowns and gets to heaven. And she says, "God, Lord, I thought you were going to save me. I was counting." He says, "Well, listen, I sent the cop. I sent the helicopter. You didn't listen to anything." Right. So kind of the same analogy where like when you get asked, how are you going to respond to it? Do you listen to it? And I shudder to think of how many times I failed to see what the universe told me.
Yeah. This is so perfect as we think about new year and a new me and what that really means, that we are energy. And some people, you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation that people hear a word like shamanism and they think they understand what that means, or it's a trigger. And we say, "Ooh, that's not me." But the energy piece, I think, also can be a similar word. And I love that you brought up the idea of it's all about physics. It's really how we're created. We're not doing this woo-woo thing around energy. Right. It's science that we are energy. So thank you for saying that out loud. I think that's important for us to have the permission to just acknowledge that we are energy. And we can shift as a result. And here are all those many invitations that may come our way. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited actually now because this is the part in our show where we say, okay, what is your golden nugget? What is that one thing that you would like to convey to our audience and listeners about what we all could do as we take our next great step, our next great leap, or enter a new chapter in our world? Act 2, we're on. What should we take away from you today, Leo?
Honor your curiosity. So I think this is worth reflecting into because we all have obligations, right? We all have obligations in our life to ourselves, to our community, to our family. We have these obligations. But I think most of us, we're curious about different things. We're curious about podcasting or music or Reiki or tarot cards. There's a curiosity in each of us. And each of us, we each have this golden jewel that we're asked to understand and hold that jewel as it connects to a thread and weaves all of our lives together. And understanding and finding that jewel is really driven by curiosity. And so the invitation, the golden nugget is to honor that curiosity, respect that curiosity.
Yes,
that was really an amazing nugget. So many nuggets in this podcast episode for sure. This has really been wonderful. So I hate to be the person to say that, I'm the timekeeper today, and we are sad to say that we're at the end of our time. But before we do, Leo, just tell us what's next for you.
We're going to keep that what's next right in the energy matters to you space, right? So I have this teacher that I speak to regularly in Cusco, Peru, Don Wilbert Alces, and he reminds me that Leo, this is the great learning time for you, right? He looked at me like I'm a little old to be starting. This is a great learning time, but he's reminding me that I'm not to say that I'm old for this, because there's no wrong time to start this. You're called to start it now. So bring the intelligence, bring the love, bring the energy into that work. So Linda, I intend to continue to seek out good teachers and to deepen my knowledge and, continue to find ways to be of service. And what I've structured locally is the Energy Matters to You website and I invite folks to be part of the yoga, which there's 4 yoga classes during the week. So, I love to see that develop and people come in and satisfy their curiosity and be part of that community. And watch them launch. Watch them say, "Oh my goodness, that the spark was lit here," and off they go into their own shamanistic journey. That lights me up to see that stuff. So then that's my goal.
Yeah, well, that's like when you're living your why and you have this sense of purpose. It is interesting having been, an athlete and a competitor and an energy person. It is really thrilling to bring that out or to help welcome it. And it's a whole new kind of a thrill that you're talking about. And you can see how energetic you get when you're talking about it. So thank you for our conversation. Thank you for the energy that you've offered us and that you're bringing to the world, Leo. It's really important, the work you're doing. Fascinating conversation about stewardship, honoring the intuitive, and how setbacks or crossroads may be an invitation to a new perspective. It's wonderful role modeling. And what a great way to start off the new year with this conversation.
Absolutely. And to our viewers and listeners, if you want to find out more about Leo and his work, you can go to his website, energymatters.com. So energymatters2you.com. And you can also find him on LinkedIn.
Yes, check him out. And special thanks to our very talented producer, Kathy Carswell, for making this all possible today.
Thank you, Leo. And I think it's left to me to say, go forth and be brave, live well, and do good, because it's Act 2.
You're on.
Act 2 You're On was brought to you by Act 2 Share Our Stage.
You can find us at a2yo.com and also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Please listen and subscribe wherever you find your podcast. You can support us using Patreon. Thanks for listening.